Good afternoon, and welcome to another segment of the Story Behind the Songs. Hi, I'm Pastor Debbie Upton from Center and Saguache United Methodist Churches. Thank you for joining me on this Wednesday afternoon. And today we're going to be looking at the hymn that many of us think about when we think about Thanksgiving. Hymn 102 in the United Methodist Hymn Book, Now Thank We All Our God. This information is actually written by a graduate student, Master Lissa Davis, who's a Master of Sacred Music student at Perkins School of Theology under the tutelage of Dr. Michael Hahn, and it was written for the UNC Discipleship website. Now Thank We All Our God was written by Martin Rinkhart and then translated by Catherine Winkworth. Now thank we all our God with heart and hands and voices, whose wondrous things have done, in whom this world rejoices, who from our mother's arms has blessed us on our way with countless gifts of love and still is ours today. For modern American Protestant churchgoers, this hymn is likely to conjure up the images of a congregation singing in unison, a pipe organ blasting at the stately tempo, and a church full of people thinking about the approaching feast of the stuffed turkey with cranberry sauce. In order to understand this hymn and where it came from, I would like to offer a different image. A minister and his family sing this hymn before dinner to thank God for the scraps of food they have on their table in their very meager home, in a desolate refugee city that is afflicted with famine and disease and war. Since the earliest projected date for this hymn was 1636, and the oldest date known is 1663, this hymn is certainly written during or soon after the 30 Years' War, which lasted from 1618 to 1648. Martin Rinkhart, 1586 to 1649, was an accomplished musician who studied at University of Leipzig and then spent most of his career as a musician and an archdeacon in the city of Edinburgh during the 30-Year Wars. British hymnologist J.R. Watson accounts that as one of the last surviving ministers in the city, Rinkhart had to stretch his personal resources to take care of refugees and spent most of his time performing nearly 50 funerals per day at the height of the plague. This experience during the 30 Years' War had a profound impact on Rinkhart's poetry, just as it did for the hymn writer's contemporaries. Lutheran scholar Karl Tschoch observes that unlike the objective hymn text of the Reformation period, the Cross and Comfort, hymnology of the time reflected life situations of the people with greater metrical regularity, a smoother language, and a theology of relatable to everyday life. The Dankentum, composed by Johann Kruger from 1598 to 1662, first appears in the 1647 Kruger Pius Pietis Makala, das in Umburg der Gottenspiel in Kreislichen and Trocklichen Grasten, meaning the practice of piety and song. This practice of godliness and Christ-like and comforting songs. It was reprinted in the 10th edition in 1661 with 550 chorales and subsequently became the most reprinted Protestant chorale book in Germany. Professor Watson speculates that Duncan Duncan de Gott was probably included in the original German in the first edition of Rinkhart's Jesu Herzbrücken in 1636. But there's no evidence for this other than the fact that it appears in a second edition in 1663. In the 1663 edition, the hymn was entitled Tischglieblein, a little table music, which suggests it was originally meant to be sung as grace before a meal. Only a few of the 66 hymns in Rinkart's collections were reprinted in German hymn books. Now Thank We All Our God was translated into English for British hymnals by Catherine Winkworth in 1827 to 1878. Winkworth published almost 400 translations of the German hymns into English for the British hymn books between 1855 and 1869, and her collections were issued in 3 volumes: Lyrica Germanica, the Chorale Book for England, the Singers of Germany. The texts of the first 2 stanzas are based on the Sirach in the Apocrypha 50, verses 22 through 24. Now therefore bless ye the God of all, which only doth wondrous things everywhere, which exalted our days from the womb and dealt with us according to his mercy. He grant us joyfulness of heart, that peace may be in our days in Israel forever. The first stanza is a depiction of bounteous and gracious God who has blessed us and provided for us. The text propels forward the phrases beginning, whom, and ending in the description of scriptures of God's actions. For some in Rinkart's dire situation, this expression of abundant gratitude might seem like a hyperbole. If you don't live in constant fear of starvation, the plague and invading armies, you are already quite a bit more fortunate than he. And yet he expands this description of God into the second stanza by bridging the two with similar ideas. Countless gifts at the end of the first stanza, with bounteous God at the beginning of stanza 2. Second stanza of the hymn moves to the future, praying for guidance and continuation and thanks and praise. Oh, may this bounteous God through all our life be near us, with ever joyful hearts and blessed peace to cheer us, and keep us still in grace, and guide us when perplexed, and free us from all ills in this world and the next. The second stanza also employs a poetic advice of anaphoria by beginning each phrase with and the 3 consecutive phrases, and keep us, and guide us, and free us. The 3 verbs are arranged in implied chronological order that leads up to the final phase, this world and the next. The third and final stanza brings the hymn to a close by acting as the German Gloria Patri, which is the lesser doxology, and offers praise to all persons of the Trinity and acknowledges God's eternal nature in last line. All praise and thanks to God, the Father now be given, the Son in him who reigns with them in highest heaven, one eternal God, whom earth and heaven adore, for thus it was, is now, and shall be evermore. Amen. So let us sing at least one verse of Now Thank We All Our God. An appropriate hymn, written in hard times, fighting a horrible disease. And may we see this as encouragement for us this week. This hymn will be one of the hymns that we sing this Sunday. We ask that you join us in person at 10:30 if you're in Center, or if you would like to join us by Zoom or Facebook at 8:30 or at 10:30, either at Center or Swatch's Facebook page, or you can go to our Center, umcofcenter.com website, and find the link for the Zoom services as well. Thank you again for joining me for this segment of the story behind the songs. And I pray it has been an encouragement for you as you go through the rest of this week, and that we now can take time to thank God, even in the midst of a pandemic. Amen.